Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Triangle BNI. My name is Mike Manning, and each week we bring you a small business success story from Triangle BNI. If you are not familiar with BNI, it is Business Networking International. It is the world's largest networking organization. Our little slice of heaven here in the Triangle, Raleigh, Durham, and Chapel Hill. We have 30 chapters going, five core groups working their way to become full chapters, and about 600 members in the area. If you go to trianglebni.com in the upper right-hand corner, there's a pull down that says find a chapter. That'll drop down. You can type in city in the area, time of day, which day you like. But we just ask you to come out and visit. You meet a bunch of good people, and each week we bring you a story of one of those successful people. This week we have Tom Azcona. Tom is owner of Affordable Promos. Tom, good to have you today.
It's wonderful to be here. I really appreciate the invitation.
Tom is in RD29 Vis-a-Vis Group. He is the backup educational coordinator to the ultimate educational coordinator, Dan Campbell. And that Vis-a-Vis meets Thursdays at 7:30 in the morning at Hope Community Church on Buck Jones Road. Monday off to a good start so far for you, Tom?
Yeah, so far it's been a really good year for the group and for all the businesses in the group.
How about for you guys? We're about middle of June now, so you hitting your numbers and everything?
Yeah, I think the numbers they started a little slow,
Okay.
but it seems like 2019 is off to a really good start. Everybody seems to be very busy, and so we're hoping that second half turns out just as successful as the first half.
Are you a seasonal business?
No, surprisingly, when I started doing promotional products, I thought it was gonna be seasonal. Knowing the way the business calendar is, you have events in the fall, you have events in the
Yeah.
spring, but the summer teams you would think would be slow. But, to my surprise and to my delight, business has been kinda steady year round, and, it doesn't give me enough free time during the summer, that I had planned, but, when business is going well, you hope that it just continues.
Yeah. And you're a wonderful story on small business. You had little to no background in promotional items, but you had sales, you had networking, you
Yeah.
had people, you had events and stuff like that. What got you to start Affordable Promos?
Well, actually, the way it all really worked was, a number of years ago as I was, working in the computer industry. I just decided I was very entrepreneurial, and so what I thought I would do was try maybe, doing a little, business there on the side, and, when the first home computers first came out, particularly Apple, I started teaching children out of my living room. I was the neighborhood piano teacher doing computers, and, the bottom line is, my weekends were always filled with kids rotating in my living room, and I was showing them how to do little things. There was no graphics. It was all just simple computer, basic language, that kind of thing. And the kids seemed to love it. And to my surprise, as the computers start evolving into the home, more and more people got them. And all of a sudden, I saw there was a business that was being marketed in California called Future Kids, and they were doing exactly what I was doing. So I said, you know what? Maybe I ought to make this a business.
Now, we were talking earlier. Every time there's an IT person that comes on, Amnon, he just this big old smile comes on his face. Because then usually I get to listen to about 3 minutes of computer talk, which I know nothing of. So let's go ahead and get it out of the way now. What was the very first computer you worked on to do any work or teach the kids?
Uh, I'm gonna say it was the first Apple computer that came out. The Apple, I think it was called the Apple IIc. That was the first computer that actually hit the marketplace in mass. And being the geek, because I was in the computer industry, I wanted one of those things, and so of course I went out and got one. They couldn't do anything. There was two programs that were available: VisiCalc, which is now basically you know uh,
Sales.
Excel,
Okay.
and then, of course, you had a word processor. Outside of that, the computer came installed with the basic programming language, and if you wanted to do anything more than what those 2 applications would be able to do, you had to write your own programs. And so I would do that just as a hobby. And my oldest daughter at the time was probably 7, 8 years old, and I actually showed her how to make a little bouncing ball run around the screen, how to type letters and things like that. So the Apple IIc was the first computer I ever had.
Did you ever use that one, Amnon?
I never used an Apple. We always used to call them toys.
I am an Apple user to this
Yeah,
day.
yeah.
I am a diehard Apple
Apple
user.
Apple fanboys are Apple fanboys forever. And there's nothing wrong with it other than it's too expensive. I mean, really,
Yeah.
it's a lot safer. It used to be a lot safer than the PC. Today it's getting back to
Yes.
being,
Oh, yeah.
hey, like, come on, you okay, now you're in the real world. We're gonna attack you, and they're not the problem with today, and if you're educating people, they're not ready for it. The users. "Oh,
Yes.
no, I don't need that. I mean, we don't get
Mhm.
viruses." Well,
It's starting.
yeah,
Viruses are a result of what? Popularity.
Yeah.
So the more
exactly,
popular, the hackers will go out there and they go after them.
exactly.
Now, each week, with the guest we have on, if folks have never been to a BNI meeting, each week there's a featured speaker, and depending on the size of the group, it's either 5 minutes or 10 minutes. And the featured speaker is always introduced by the bio sheet. So, Tom, that's how we do it here every week.
Good.
So, our speaker today, Tom Azcona, business name is Affordable Promos. If they want to find you online, it's affordable-promos.com.
That's correct.
Okay. Profession is promotional items, products? What's the
It's pretty much the giveaway products.
okay.
So what I tell people is anything with your name on it that you want to use to brand, to market, and to promote your business is pretty much what I'm all about. The reality is everybody thinks that as a promo business, what they've got to do is give away a pen. But if you think about it, everybody has pens.
Mm.
But it's a promotional item that represents your business, and that's what I'll do. So there's probably nothing off limits. You come up with an idea and you want your name on it, I can probably get it for you.
We all go to the pens. We automatically think when somebody hears, "Oh, promotional products," we think pen. And for me, I can't have enough pens in the car, the house, in the office upstairs, stuff like that. But a part of your world is educating to let them know, and I've heard you say this before, is you need to leave something behind that's appropriate for your business or
Yeah.
memorable for their business.
Right. It all started. I mean, I come from the high tech industry and I was in marketing. And the one thing with marketing is you're out there trying to increase your business. You're trying to make more sales. And a lot of the small business people, they don't think about that. They just figure that all they've got to do is be visible. They're out there and people will come. But that's not really the truth because there are a lot of businesses out there. So if you really want to distinguish yourself, make yourself stand out, you've got to do something that is different. Think about it. If you go to a trade show, you go to the home show, you go to the Raleigh home show every it's twice a year, and you walk around, everybody has a pen. And if you
Mm.
take that pen and you bring it home, where does it go? It goes in the pile of pens, and you have a pile of pens. So now think about it. 6 months from now, maybe
Yeah.
you're in the pest control business and somebody needs pest control. You really think they're going to think about where is that pen that had that pest control name on it? So it's really not related. So that's why I tell people make it related to your business.
That pile of pens is right next to the pile of business cards they have that they have no idea where they got it from.
Exactly. Exactly.
Your location of business.
I work at a home office. I'm out of Fuquay. So Fuquay Marina is where I have my home office. And what I do is I have access to pretty much all the vendors that are out there in the industry that can customize anything as a promotional item. So I don't really need to have a back room. You don't think that in my garage I have a machine that's going to put your name on pens, or I have an embroiderer, in the basement where I'm going to be able to embroider your name on a shirt. What I do is I have accounts with all of the premier suppliers, if you will, around the country and around the world. So depending on what you want, I just go out, find it. That's my job. That's what I do for you, is I go out and find it and make sure that it's a quality product, and I find a vendor that can actually do the customization for you.
And what I've learned from you, having known you for a little while, is that I didn't know, and I'm glad you point this out to people, is you get your products from the same vendors that there could be a company in Raleigh that's a big name. People have seen they're building their truck. This you get the merchandise from the same venues, so you actually can do it quicker and cheaper, and they're getting the same thing, right?
Oh, exactly. Everybody that does what I do, We all go to the same vendors. For example, one of my big suppliers is Bic, the maker of pens. They're actually called Bic Graphic, and they make a variety of different promotional products. So anybody that needs the kind of products that Bic supplies, they have accounts with Bic. If they're looking for any kind of apparel, bags, whatever it is, they have to go out and they have to find the vendors. So we all belong to associations where we have access to all of those vendors, and we all get everything from the same place. And if you think that we all get volume discounts because one one provider of promotional products is bigger than the other, that's actually not the case. All the products are priced based on what you're going to sell. So if I'm going to sell you 100 pens and someone else is going to sell you 100 pens, the price to them and the price to me is exactly the same. So there's really no benefit in using one vendor over the other. I believe that my advantage is I am not brick and mortar. So it is me. I don't have a sales team. I do everything. It's all pretty much, if you want to call it white glove treatment, and it's just me. So I can cut down on pricing.
Just one retired grandfather trying to make a living to spoil his grandkids, right?
It started out as a hobby. I retired from Hewlett Packard, and I said I need to keep myself busy. I am not a couch potato. I'm a golfer, but as I got older, I realized I can't actually play golf every day and live through it. So I figured I had to do something to keep myself busy, and I decided marketing, which is my background, is the best avenue for me to take.
And you've been doing this since August of 2016, so you're coming up on 3 years here in a few weeks.
Yes, I've been doing the promotional products, so affordable promos will be 3 years old. Marketing, I've been doing that for a number of years, but the actual affordable promos, the company itself, I started in August, just shortly after I moved to the area.
How'd you come up with the name, and why was it not taken?
Well, it what a lot of small businesses and even large businesses, what they don't think about is in today's internet world, when someone is gonna go try and find something, a lot of people they give a name to a business because it's cool, come up with a cool name, people
Yeah,
remember it.
the
But that's not true because people don't go on Google or any of the search engines and put in cool names. What they put in there is I want cheap promotional products. I want affordable products. I want easy access. They use keywords. And so what I did is I sat down and I came up with a list of keywords that I thought people would use to go out and search for promotional products. And I didn't want silly things. I didn't want cheap promotional products because cheap has a separate connotation.
Oh, yeah.
So when I came up with a list and narrowed it down, I thought affordable promos. That's going to be keywords people are going to look at. They're going to look at promos, promotions, affordable, available, that kind of thing. And so after I did that, I went online. I looked at the trademark. I went to the trademark website and see if anybody owned affordable promos. And I did find one other company that used affordable promos in their name, but not doing what I did. So I took that, and it seems to be paying off because I tell people when they ask me questions
Yeah.
about, where am I, who am I selling to, how do I price it? I say, look at my name. It's affordable promos, keywords.
I was stunned that that wasn't taken,
Yeah.
so kudos to but you thought that through, and a lot of
Mhm.
people and you see businesses, and we've talked about this on previous shows. My favorite is when people have to explain the
Right.
business name and they outthink themselves because I've heard this before. Well, we came up with this name. It was a Greek or Latin name, but it meant
Oh,
and they
yes.
listed 6 different things, but nobody can remember the
Right.
name of the company, and they just outthink themselves, and they think, "Well, we can't be we've gotta tell people we're more better than
Yeah.
affordable promos," and but that's what you are, and it's
Exa
what I love about the name.
Exactly. I mean, that's what I tell people when they're coming up with their company name. Either use keywords in the company name, which will help in the search process, or come up with a fancy name if you want, but make your URL,
Yeah.
have the keywords in it. So I could have called myself, great promos, but had my web URL affordable promos because that's what people are going to search on.
Yeah, but you're right because we search how we talk,
Right.
and that's another thing, I'm glad you brought that up, is that and people think about this next time you go searching through Google or something, what do you type in? You want
Right.
cut my grass,
Right.
and, you don't think a landscaper, and you might, but people type in how they talk. So
Yeah,
I
and if they're
love.
coming up with a company when they're thinking about a company name, forget the company name, just go to Google and just start searching on, on names, on keywords that you
Yeah.
think are related to your business and see what pops up. And if things do start popping up related to your business, start thinking about those keywords as your company name.
I hear you. We are here with Tom Azcona, owner of Affordable Promos, continuing with the introduction bio sheet. Previous types of jobs on here. Now we're going to get to your post college jobs.
Okay.
I want a high school story or a college job story that either involved it was done in 2 hours or it was memorable for whatever reason.
Well, I grew up in the 60s. So in the 60s, it seemed like when you had the British invasion, every teenager wanted to be in a rock band. And so I hung out with a bunch of guys that started fiddling around with guitars, and they decided to have a rock band. And since I was one of the buddies, I was one of their in crowd. They said, "Hey, join the band." And I'm like, I know nothing about guitars. And they says, "Great, you can be the bass player because it's only four strings and you don't really need to know how to do chords." And so, and the next thing you know it, I'm in a rock band, and I was in a rock band all through high school. And probably the funniest story is I'm in the seventh grade, just starting out in a rock band, and happened to be at a family gathering at our house. And one of my uncles came to me, and he was just talking about his daughter, my cousin, was graduating from high school. And I said, "Hey, I'm in a rock band. We should play." And it was really kind of a joke. And so he hired us for $25.
Oh,
And to this day, my cousin doesn't let me forget that occasion, because the last scene she wanted was a senior from high school graduating, having her high school graduation party, and a seventh grade band playing for her. So I always remember that.
what was the name of the band?
Oh, we were the Satan's Angels.
In seventh grade.
Yes.
What kind of music did you
Well,
play?
we played rock music. Of course, Satan's Angels didn't last very long, but then we became the Midnights.
Why? I think I know the name deserved to be changed, but why did you change the name?
Well, unless you were around in the 60s, there happened to be a group called, it was called, oh, what were they called? I'm trying to remember their name, but they had colonial hats. And Paul Revere and
And
the
the Raiders,
Raiders. Paul Revere
yes.
and the Raiders. And so one of the guys in the band happened to be in a gift store or something and found one of those little colonial hats and bought them for all of us. And we just wore them as a joke. And so they came up with Midnights because colonial times, but I don't know what they had to do with midnights, but that became the name.
Aside from your bass playing skills, was the music any good?
Of course, as we got older, we got better, and of course, we kicked out people that couldn't play, and I started learning how to actually play the guitar. And so finally, probably maybe in my sophomore year of high school, I was in a band called Peace of Mind, and we happened to become the band in the area. So we were playing at all the high school functions. We played a lot of graduations and weddings. So during high school, I probably worked almost every weekend because we had jobs everywhere.
What was the going rate for a decent paying gig back then once you got to peace of mind?
While in the 60s, this was in the 60s, we were probably making maybe a couple of $100,
Ooh.
each time we played. So that meant there was five of us. You make $200, that's only $40 in your pocket each. But in them days, $40 went a long way.
And it was cash too,
And we
right?
played, and we pretty much played every weekend, so it added up.
Did that attract the women fans?
Yes and no. It was high school, so you still had to get through that. It wasn't like we were, a college band playing in the high school, and they wanted to go after the older men, so it didn't work out that way.
All right, so let's move on to a new kind of female fans for you. In the personal section, your wife,
Yes, Gloria.
Gloria. How did you meet, and do you both tell the story the same way?
I think we do kind of tell the story the same way because it is a little bit different. Way back in the, I guess again in the early '60s, my father. I'm from Indiana. My father had some relatives that lived in Brownsville, Texas, which
Oh
is
yeah.
the most southern point of Texas.
Yep.
And so he took the family down there, and we were down there for 3 years. And I was like in the second, third grade at that time. My brother I have one brother, he's older than I am, and 6 years older. So he was there and he met a girl and he had a girlfriend. She had a sister. And it just so happened in them days, my parents wouldn't allow them to go out on dates unless they took their siblings. And so we would go to the drive-in theater movies. They'd be up front, of course, and all the siblings, we would be in the back. And there I am sitting with the younger sister of my brother's girlfriend. And so we actually knew each other when we were kind of like in second, third, fourth grade. Fast forward, we leave the area. My brother still was in touch with his girlfriend. Eventually, they ended up getting married, and my now wife moved up to live with her sister to Indiana. And I was graduating from high school at that time in 1969. And so I asked her out on a date, and the rest is history. But
Too
bottom line
funny.
is, brothers married sisters.
When you after you met Gloria, how long after that did you leave Brownsville?
I was only in Brownsville for 3 years. So I when I left, I was only in the 5th grade. She's a couple of years older than I am. But I was in the 5th grade. So at that time, we left, and it was about a year, maybe a year and a half later, that my brother, who like I said, was 6 years older than I am, uh, they got married. And then it was a few years after that. So there was a gap. There was probably a gap of maybe 6, 7
But
years.
so this was the age of letter writing. There were not many phone calls back then, right? Between you
You
2?
There was no phone
Between you and
calls.
Gloria?
Oh, there was no contact
Yeah.
between us because when I left,
Oh.
I was in the 5th grade. So we were not dating. We were not
Wait,
an
you
item.
didn't wanna write letters to the love of your life
There
back
was
then?
no love at that time. I was in the 5th grade. I was into Little League
You
baseball.
didn't know the time you met her that this was the woman for
No,
me?
no, 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 no. I was just worried about, not striking out with
With
baseball.
baseball.
Okay, so, I go to Indiana. The last thing I'm thinking about is my brother's girlfriend's sister.
Could Gloria play baseball?
Oh, no, no, she
Okay.
can't to this day. Yeah, no.
So what does she do with the grandkids out in the backyard? Watch them play baseball?
Uh, Throws a ball awkwardly,
Okay.
plays whatever the grandkids wanna play,
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
because it's not up to us, it's up to the
Oh, yeah,
grandkids,
yeah.
right?
That's funny. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the kids now and the grandkids. So how many kids?
So I have 2 daughters. So, I have, oldest daughter is Kim, and she happens to be also a professional. She's a director of marketing and lives in the Maryland area. And I have another daughter, Sarah, who, is actually works for Fidelity Investments out of Morrisville, and they both have kids. My daughter, in Maryland has a daughter. We have another female in the family, and she's now 13 years old. And my younger daughter, Sarah, she had a granddaughter, or we had a granddaughter through her, Ava, who's now 12. And then finally, she had a grandson. And other than my two son-in-laws, we brought another male into the family. We can't outvote him yet, but
Yeah.
we're getting there.
I always, I take, great pride in shamelessly bringing up grandkids because I always like to
Yes.
mention Oliver, who
Yes.
had the first, so it was neat yesterday, by the way, happy belated Father's Day to you and Amnon.
And you.
Thank you, and
And
everybody,
everybody.
yes. It was neat because my son it'll just like your daughter's the first time they had their first Mother's Day, as my son had his first Father's Day,
Oh,
so it's
yes.
pretty cool that
Oh,
first
yeah.
one, they sent a good picture, and just watching them grow up, and now they have their kids, and you tell those
Yeah.
stories, but, so, when the grandkids come visit you, you're in charge, right? They're hanging out with you, you're helping them and all that stuff, right?
Yes, the hanging out and stuff like that, you're right. I'm not sure about the in charge part of it, because, Bryson, who is our grandson, is I guess I should basically 6.5 because if I didn't, he'd correct me for that.
Yeah,
He's
you gotta
six
have
and a
the half,
half,
yeah.
and no one tells Bryson what to do.
Okay.
But yeah, they come to the house and we have to have a larger backyard than
You
they
do,
do.
yeah.
So they love that. And we put a whole, activity center in the back. So when they're there to visit, they have something to do.
And what do they call you and Gloria?
It's basically grandma and grandpa.
Okay,
Yeah.
alright.
We don't have any crazy family nicknames.
Alright, good deal. How often do the 3 grandkids get together with you and
Uh,
Gloria?
well, because my oldest daughter lives in Maryland, they come down for the holidays.
Okay.
So it's pretty much the holidays. Actually, we just went up there this weekend and did a kind of early Father's
Oh,
Day
okay.
up there. But they probably won't be here until probably Thanksgiving.
Right. Does your younger daughter play the favorite daughter card because she's got 2 and they're both here, so you can see them a lot? Because I would.
Well, there's a 7.5 year difference between the two. So the older one uh, thinks she's the maternal uh,
Okay.
sister, if you will.
Yeah.
So she always thinks she's not just older, but wiser and knows life better
You
than she does.
you mentioned earlier that, golf was of an interest of yours. What other hobbies and activities of interest do you have?
Well, if I'm not playing golf, then I'm probably playing golf.
Okay. Did you get that simulator set up in your garage yet?
I have a simulator in my garage. Um, if anybody is probably maybe 6 foot or taller, they wouldn't be able to. They'll be hitting a garage door on their backswing.
Are the readings on the computer screen accurate to your skill and where you actually hit the ball?
Well, computers are a wonderful thing because you can make them do whatever you want them to do. So if I want to claim that I can hit it 325 yards, it's really a matter of just changing a setting, and I do
Yeah, I wasn't even
that.
gonna ask that. I just assumed that
And
was
I'm
gonna
always
happen.
straight.
Yeah. Your burning desire is to what?
Uh, you know, uh, when I was younger, I always thought it was to play golf every day. I lived in Naples, Florida for about 9, 10 years, and I lived in a golf resort. And right in my backyard, just right outside of my window, the golfers would go by every day. And I would play there on weekends. And I said, when I retire, I think that's what I want to do is I'm going to play golf every day. But as you get older, the muscles are
Mm,
different. And not only that, uh, it's surprising how many different things you can find that you have to do around the house that you
yeah.
never did
Oh,
before.
yeah.
So your time gets occupied. So now, my burning desire is to just be able to play golf when I want to,
Okay.
and with affordable promos, I can do that. So that's what I'm enjoying. If I wanted to take some time off like we did last week, we can go
Mm.
visit the grandkids, which we did. A couple of weeks ago, we headed to the mountains and just spent a long weekend in the mountains. So my burning desire is pretty much to let my business kind of be sustainable and being able to take time off whenever I want.
Yeah. No, I'm with you on that, and we've had numerous conversations on the show here about owning a small business, and
Yeah,
it is hard if you don't have a plan
right.
or you don't want to do it, and I like to explain to people, I call it stressful freedom.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think it's the saying, r-
Jeez, look at
run your
this. Look what he
business.
just put up here. The potty putter.
Run your business. What is it? Run your business. Don't let the business run you.
Yeah, well, true
You
that,
know,
yeah.
and
Yep.
unfortunately, there's a lot of people where the business is just takes over their lives.
It does, yeah, and they get all consumed
Yeah,
now before they know it,
right.
more time has passed than they wanted to, so, yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Something now there's a lot of people getting to know you today, they'll know you better by the end of the
Mhm.
show, but something we don't know about you that we've not heard yet.
Well, like, interesting enough, when the when I did get that home computer and I was teaching children, and like I said, we found out that there was a company that started, and their business was to teach children how to use computers, and they started them at the preschool level. And since I was doing that, uh, I was actually going to buy. It was a franchise. I was going to buy one of their franchises, and I went to the SBA to ask for a business loan. And they asked me, they said, "Well, what's your background?" I said, "Well, I'm in the computer industry. I'm teaching children in my house right now, and in the computer industry, I was an educator. I developed courseware and I taught." So the SBA came back and said, "Now, why would we give you money for a new business that no one's ever even heard of? Computers aren't even in the house, really, for that matter. Why should we give you money for that business when you already teach children? You were in training and you're in the computer industry. Why don't you try it on your own and see how it works out? And if it does work out, then maybe we can revisit this whole franchise thing." And so my wife and I, we went and had lunch and sat down and talked about it. And I said, "Okay, well," I went out and I bought two, the Macintosh just came out at that time.
Mm,
So I bought two Macintoshes and I says, "All right, you know what? I'm going to start a business." And now all I have to do is find children, and they're everywhere, right? Well, problem is, how do you get families to sign their children up for computers when they don't even have them at home themselves? And did a mailing. I just sent mailings out to people to their homes. And to my surprise, I got zero response. And one day I was just driving down the road and there was a daycare center with the big banner out front that says, enrollment for the fall. And I started thinking about it. My kids, we always had them in daycare because my wife and I, we both work. And they always had little activities for them to do, whether it's tap dance, jazzercise, exercise, whatever they were. And I said, I wonder whether they would be open to the idea of letting the kids sign up for computer classes. And so that's what I did is I went there, knocked on a door, asked them, and they basically asked me a question. Is it going to cost me anything? I said, no. They said, okay, then you can do whatever you want. And so I started doing that. I started going to daycare centers and we were teaching children. We were giving them as an option. And what I did is I created 4 lessons. It was gonna be 1 lesson a week. 4 weeks, they'd be done. It'd be kinda, who's gonna be the next kids that wanna sign up? And they'd take their 4 lessons and the next kid. To my surprise, after Johnny finished 4 lessons, the phone rang, and the parents said, "Johnny loved the computers. They wanna
Mhm,
sign up again." I said, "Darn, I gotta go and write some more lessons."
mhm.
So I wrote more lessons. Next thing you know it, the business grew. We were doing about 800 children a week.
Gee.
And we I we started with children at 3.5 years old, and they would take a lesson, 1 a week, and they would be able to take 1 lesson a week without ever repeating, without ever stopping until they graduated from high school. So that's how many lessons I had developed. I had developed a curriculum. And so one thing led to another. The franchising business was starting to take off. There was everybody Subway was out there making sandwiches and selling franchises. So what I did is I ended up franchising the business and sold some of the franchises. And the only reason I even stopped is it got too big because I forgot to mention I did this part time while I still had a full time job. And so it was either give up the business and stay with my full time job or quit my full time job and do this full time. The problem was it was going to cost a lot of money to do it full time. And so after 7.5 years, we stopped the business and we let it go.
Wow.
What you
This was, well, my oldest daughter is, so forgive me for this, is
no, what
44. So she was probably 8 years old. So do the math, it was almost
80,
30 years ago. Like I said, it was in the 80s because the computers
83-ish.
just came out.
Yeah.
They were just starting to get into color and graphics at that time, and that's what allowed me to do the lessons because software was coming out
Mm.
to where kids can now do ABCs and they can do arithmetic and stuff, and it was on the computer, whereas before it wasn't like that. And so what I did is I took all of these off the shelf products and, if you will, kind of broke them up and created modules. And because my background was in training in the computer industry, I developed a curriculum and I hired people to be my training instructors and I would send them to different daycare centers. And I might add, the 700 to 800 children that we did a week, I never taught a single lesson to a single child. I outsourced it, if you will. I wrote all the curriculum and then I trained people how to do it.
Did you charge the daycare for this?
No.
You did that for free to get the students after the
Yes.
4 weeks.
Yes, and here's the funny story. So, okay, the daycare center says, "Okay, you can come in to the open house. You can have a table, and let's just see if any of the parents are interested." Now, of course, me, the businessman, thinking, "Kids don't have money, parents have money." So, I created a little presentation. I had everything all set up there. I had a table waiting for the parents to come in, and I'm gonna show them how great computers are, and they're gonna want their kids to sign up for this. So the kids would come by and it's all new to them, right? So the first thing they do is they grab the mouse and they're moving the mouse around. And I'm like, stop, stop, stop. You're interrupting my presentation. I tell the kids, go away. I need
Mm.
to talk to the parents. Parents come by and I'm talking to them. I lose sight of the children and there they are grabbing the mouse and they're playing it again. I say, oh, stop, stop, stop. So anyway, I'm talking to the parents and I'm no longer paying attention. And all of a sudden, one of the mothers says, "Oh, look at Johnny's playing with the computer." And I turn around, light bulb. I'm like,
Yep.
"Oh, kids, come, come." And I got all the kids to huddle around the computers and they loved it. Next thing you know it, all the parents are signing up because they all want Johnny and Susie to learn how to play the computer.
The Disney model. They make
Yes.
kids movies because the parents have to drive the kids to the
Right.
movie theater.
But it just
Pretty simple.
took some of us a little longer to get grasp that. And luckily, we had some very persistent children that would not let
Okay.
go of that mouse.
Did the daycare let you in because it was a good idea, or they thought this would bomb and you'll go away and we don't have to worry about it?
Well, no offense to educators, but the one thing educators like is for someone else to take up the time with the children because that means they don't have to.
Yeah.
And so it's the same thing with the daycare centers. The way they looked at it is the kids will sign up for the parents will sign their kids up for all these different activities, but the daycare center is not the one that has to offer them. And so it does give them a little bit of time off.
Okay. Kind of like being a grandparent.
Kind of like being a
Parents say,
grandparent.
"Here, you take care of them for a little bit, and then I'm gonna go take a
And the
nap."
good
And
news
okay.
is they always have to go home.
I like that. We're here with Tom Azcona. He's the owner of Affordable Promos. You can reach him at what's phone number up there for what's your phone number, Tom? I wrote it down.
919-265-3071.
There you go. Or you can go to affordable-promos.com and get some information about the items you offer. And when you say thousands of offers and literally almost you can put a logo on just about anything, right?
Just about anything. So far, there's only been one item that I was not able to find a source for, but everything else I was able to. So my website is set up. Uh, it's kind of like a electronic catalog, if you
Mhm.
will. I mean, if you think about it, there's thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of items out there in the marketplace. If I had to carry these catalogs to show people, because the first thing people say is,
Oh,
"What?
yeah.
Oh, what do you sell?"
Yeah.
I'd have to have catalogs. And so I was carrying some catalogs around with me, and it just got to be too much. And since all my business is the triangle, people aren't really going to the website looking for me. It's all face to
Yeah.
face, And so what I did is the website is kind of a doorway into all of the products.
Yeah.
So you can look them up, you can find them, and then what I'll do is I'll go to the actual vendor, the supplier that has them, and then place the orders, do the customization, that kind of.
And we talked earlier about having an item that's appropriate and descriptive of your business. And you can mention a company's names
Yeah.
if you want. That's fine. But give us a couple examples of some companies that have actually put their logo on something that they can leave behind for
Yeah.
somebody that makes sense.
Well, I'll start with one that doesn't make sense. I was at the Raleigh Home Show when we first moved out here, and we are just walking around. My wife hates this because she knows I'll end up talking with people. But so what happened is I'm walking around, and this guy flashes a fly swatter in front of my face and said, "Here,
Oh,
take one.
yeah.
It's free." And so I took the fly swatter, and as I'm walking away, I happened to turn around and glance over at their sign, and I saw that they were in home security. And so I told my wife, I says, "Hold on, I can't resist. I've got to talk to this guy." So I go to him and I said, "All right, you're in home security, yes?" Uh, and by the way, it's not the popular ones that everybody knows about. I said, "You're in home security and you're handing out fly swatters. Help me understand why." And the guy gave me the stock answer. "Well, that's what the home office gave us." I says, "Oh, okay." I says, "Yeah, it's got your name on it." I says, "But you're in home security." I said, "Let's just say I don't need home security right now. And I take this fly swatter and I take it home. 6 months from now, you know what? We need home security. What is the name of that home security company?" Now, am I going to be saying to myself, "Where is that fly
Yeah.
swatter?" Hmm. No, I'm probably not. So I told the guy, I said, "Listen, you're in home security. Who in the world is going to remember who you are based off of a fly swatter? It has nothing to do with home security." I said, "If you were in pest control,
Yeah.
oh, that's a no-brainer. That would be a great item." And so that's an example of something that is probably not suitable. You're going to spend money. I don't care if you paid a penny for those fly swatters. It's a penny that you're spending that's just wasted money because no one's going to remember who you are. So I'll work with the tradespeople. And I tell them, rather than give away things, why don't you just you're always in front of the customer. Why don't you just make sure that the apparel that you're wearing has your name on it? That means every time they see you, they're going to see your company name. Or if it's going to be pest control or it's going to be plumbing, electrical, and it's something that's going to be like periodic maintenance, give them calendars, something that they're going to put in a refrigerator because
Mhm.
they're always going to be looking at it and they're going to see who you are. And so those are the kinds of things to me that would be successful.
Yeah. And that guy with the security company's looking at you like, "Hell, man, I just work here. They just handed me
That
these."
that is exactly right.
Yeah,
The
he didn't
guy is
know.
like,
Yeah.
"Hey, give me a break."
Did he understand your logic,
Oh
do you
no, he
think?
didn't care because he was selling home security
Yeah.
and he had these fly swatters to give away.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, I was at another networking event, and a guy grabbed me and said, "Hey, throw your business card in here. I'm giving away
Mhm.
one of those battery, one of those chargers for your cell phone. If you run
Mhm.
out, you plug it in, it gives you more power."
Mhm.
Anyway, he had one of those there, and he said, "I'm going to give that away." I says, "Oh," and I looked at it. I said, "Does it have your name on it?" And he says, "Well, we're just giving away. Give me your business card." I said, "Well, wait a second. Let's just say that I give you my business card and I win." And you give me this, I don't know, maybe you paid $25 or whatever it is you paid for this. I take it home with me. And again, 6 months from now, I got this little charger and I'm like,
Wonder where
where did this come from? And if that wasn't enough, when I was asking him why his name wasn't on it, I turned around and looked at his sign and I'm reading the sign. And I looked at him and I said, "What do you do?"
Mm.
And he says, "I build websites." And I looked at his sign and I'm like, "It doesn't say anything on your sign about websites." I said, "So maybe you might consider changing your sign. And if you're going to give away something, why don't you put your name on it?"
Yeah. Last week, we had, Scott Sams on, who I know
Yes.
you do stuff with, and
He's
Scott's a
one of
good
my
dude.
buddies.
Yep, good friend of ours. And with Dynamic Print Solutions, and we're talking about this very thing. What drives me nuts is I'm sitting at a red light, or actually before it's a red light, I'm driving down the road, and there's that door magnet
Yes.
on the car, and it's beautiful coloring, and nobody can read it
Right.
because it's cursive. We're going 35 miles an hour,
Right.
and I don't have time to look that long and not hit the person in front of me. I know you have this conversation with people when they say, "Here's what I want, here's my design."
Right.
In your eye immediately, which is what you should do because you're the expert, is that's not going to fly with the
Right.
consumer.
Well, there's two kinds of promotional people who that do what I do. There's those that when they come to you and they say, "You know what? I need 100 pens with my name on it," or "I need pens," and the first question they ask is, "How many?"
Yeah.
I'm the other kind. If somebody comes to me and says, "Hey, I need some pens," my first question isn't how many. My first question is, "Well, what do you do?" Because I think in all fairness, uh, you owe that to the customer. You want to make sure that if they're going to spend money, that it's going to be worth worth the cost. That they're going to get they're going to get something out of it. Because if they're not, they're probably going to say, "You know what? I'm not going to go back to Tom and buy more pens because the last time I did, they didn't do me anything." And if I didn't provide them any feedback as to what would be a better item for them to choose, then I think I'm not doing my job. And now my background again, when I ran my own little business out of my home, I was just a small consumer. Uh, I happened to work for a big computer company. I was with Hewlett Packard. Everybody know who Hewlett Packard was, but that wasn't my business. My business at that time was either training children or in this case here, doing promotional products. So no one knows really who I am. And I'm working with primarily small, medium-sized businesses, and they don't have budgets.
No.
Most of the time when they need something to hand out, it's because they signed up for a booth or a table, and they now I better get something to pass out. And they don't have a budget. They can't go back and say, "Well, I allocated this quarter, X number of dollars," because they didn't. So I try to deal with the small, medium-sized business person, and I understand they don't have a budget. So in that case, I owe it to them to say, "Wait a second. I can get you anything you want, but is it going to be the smart thing to do?" Because as I tell everybody, it's so much cheaper to retain a client than it is to go find a new client. It costs you like what? I think the statistics vary, but 10 to 15 times more to acquire a new client than it is to retain the existing one. So I would rather retain that client. I would rather make them happy, get them something that they can use, something that's going to give them so they're gonna get some, return for that investment, and they're gonna wanna come back to me, and they're gonna want something else. If they bought something that they give out and no one even remembers who they are, they're probably gonna think of that as a bad experience, and they're not gonna come back and ask me for more.
And I agree with you on that. We've had you've given us numerous examples in the past of what people can and can't do and shouldn't do. Do you have a quick question?
I was
Okay.
not a question. I was just gonna say it happens everywhere.
Yes.
Commercials, half of them you watch and it's a nice story and
Yeah.
Yes.
what was it about?
What was
Right.
it? What kind of car was that that I just
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
I mean, a lot
Yeah.
of what and you never remember. You see it again and again and again, and you enjoy it every time, but you don't know what it's
Mm.
for.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's what I try to do is that again being a small business person myself, I'm not going to invest in anything that is not going to pay off for me. I mean, a topic that we really didn't get into is when I took an early retirement from Hewlett Packard, and what I did is I bought a franchise. I bought a franchise to go out and do corporate events. Now I did corporate events every quarter while I was at Hewlett Packard for years and years and years. So I was always out there. I know what those things cost. And I got tired. I got tired of the big game, if you will. And so I decided to buy a franchise, run my own business. And I paid the franchise fees. I bought it. I got the licensing. I did everything you need to do. Problem is, the franchise, as it turns out, the franchisor didn't hold up to their end of the bargain. And my franchise business did not do well. And so when I started Affordable Promos, I said, what I'm gonna do is the complete opposite of what I did with the franchise. And that is I am not going to make that kind of investment. I want to make sure every dollar counts. And that's what I do now.
We're here with Tom Azcona, owner of Affordable Promos. We're talking earlier, I think before we went on, that you were telling Amnon that you spent 35 years for a computer company that you did not involve computers, and you were 7 years in the Air Force, and it didn't involve flying. But I would feel bad if I didn't get you to tell the story that you've told in BNI before about being face down in the snow.
So
This is classic.
I was in I was in college. I was at Purdue University. This was 1969. And that was the second year of the lottery. They had gotten rid of the regular draft system and they went to a lottery system. So 1968 was the first lottery, 1969 was the second lottery. So anyway, I'm in the dorm and on national TV, they're picking the lottery numbers so that if you're eligible, you're going to know what your lottery number is and what your chances are. And we're still in Vietnam, by the way, at that time. It was the latter years of the Vietnam War, but we were still in the Vietnam conflict. And so we were all anxious to know when our birthday was going to be picked because are we going to get drafted? That's what we were worried about. And so I had a low number. I think my number was like 67 or 57. It was low. It was a low number. And so I'm worried about getting drafted. But then again, we also had protection in them days. If you were in college and you were an active student in college, they gave you, I think it was called an S1 rating, or I forget what it was, but they gave you a rating that said you're in college, so they can't draft you. Doesn't mean you won't ever get drafted. It's just that while you're in school, they can't take you. So anyway, so we all felt protected. Well, it just so happens that my year, I'll emphasize my year at Purdue University was a lot of fun. And because when you have fun in college, that means your grades aren't that good. And so anyway, I'm a resident of Indiana. And so in Indiana, uh, they have they have satellite campuses. And so in the summer of now 70, I'm already ready to go back to school the next year. I get a letter from Purdue University that says, we need you to transfer to one of the regional campuses. And panic struck. I'm like, oh no, I got to stay home. That's the last thing I wanted to do was stay home. So I argued with them and they said, well, listen, your grades weren't good enough. And so we only have so many slots for out of state students. Because you're an in state student, you're going to go to a regional campus. So I said, forget that. I'll transfer schools. And I transferred. In them days, unbeknownst to me, you had to tell the draft board that you were transferring, and I didn't. So what happened was I get a letter, and it really did say greetings, as everybody might think about in those days. And it basically told me that I had to go to my pre-induction physical. And I didn't look at the pre part. I just zeroed in on induction. And so I'm like, oh my goodness, panic. I'm going to be drafted. And so I went to the draft board and I said, this is obviously a mistake. I'm still a student. Here's all my records. They said, oh, well, you never told us that you transferred. I lost that cause. And because I had a low lottery number, I was worried that I was going to be drafted and I'm going to be off to Vietnam. And so I decided to join the service on my own. And that's what I did is I ended up dropping out of school after one semester, and I went and joined the Air Force. And in the Air Force, I chose the Air Force because I wanted uh, not to be on a boat. I wanted not to be dodging bullets, and I figured, what better way to do this? Go on an airplane. So I joined the Air Force, and luckily, the Air Force had a career field which was ICBMs, the nuclear weapons, and they were only in the United States. So being the brilliant mind that I am, I deduced that if I go in the Air Force and if I go into the missile program, I can't go overseas and I don't have to worry about Vietnam. And guess what? It worked. So now I'm in the missile systems. Now the bad thing is that the missiles happen to be in North Dakota. And so after I went through all my training, there I am in North Dakota in the cold. And because they're nuclear weapons, and because we were so fearful of the Canadians, um, we had to make sure that all the security was kept up to date. And when you go into a missile silo, into a missile system, just through the gates, you have to go through an authentication process. You have to prove who you are, and it's all done on radio. So they don't know who you are. There's nobody there. It's all unmanned. And so you have to go through all these different authentications over the radio. And there's code pages and all that high tech stuff that that science fiction stuff that you see in on television. Well, what had happened was this one particular time, and it happened frequently, we we screwed up. We didn't authenticate properly. Usually what happens, they tell you, "Well, okay, hold on," and they'll ask you some other questions. Kinda like today, when you call the bank and they don't know who you
Yeah.
are, what's your birth date,
Yeah.
what's your mother's maiden name, that kind of thing.
First pet. Yeah.
Yeah. So they usually would go through that. This time they didn't. They just said, "Well, hold on. We'll get back to you." So we're okay. And we're huddled in the car. It's in the middle of winter and it is cold out there. And so we're staying in the car. And when you're in the military and it's at night and you're on a missile site and you got no work to do, there's only one thing to do: go to sleep. And so that's what we're dozing off against the car. Next thing we know it, there's a tap on the window. And we turn around and we look at the window and there's an M16 staring right at you. I'm like, what the heck is this all about? It just so happened this one guy just came out of security school or something. He just became a cop. And of course, he's going by the rules. So he taps on, he says, "Okay, everybody out of the vehicle." And we're like confused. We're like, what is this all about? This is just out of the vehicle. And if that wasn't enough, he says, "Okay, everybody down on the ground, face down." We're like, but it's cold outside and it's snowing and there's like 6 inches of snow on the ground. Get on the ground, face down. So there we are, face down in the snow, spread eagle, and there's two security guys. One guy's got the M16 on next to your head, and the other guy is reaching into your back pocket to pull out your wallet because they want to see your ID. Usually, what'll happen is they'll come to you and say, "Hey, we understand you kind of goofed up. Why don't you just give me your ID and we'll take a look at it and everything is all cool." Not this time. This time, it was guns to the head, and they reached in, pulled out our ID. Then after they saw that we were not from Canada or from some other foreign country, they all smiles like, "Oh, everything's okay. You can now go back to work." And I'm like, "No, no, no, this isn't over yet." I said, "What is your name?" And I'm playing official. I want to know who you are. I'm going to get back, let them know what happened. And of course, I got in the truck and I said, here's a guy who did everything by the book. What do you think my chances are of getting him disciplined? So I said, "You know what? Just let it go. It's just a story to tell."
I love that, face down in the snow in Minot, North Dakota.
Well, it's
Well,
Grand
or
Forks,
great,
but you know
okay.
what? It's
But
just as
but
cold,
why did I sign up for
just
this? Yeah,
right down the
yeah.
road.
So we just have a couple minutes left. I want to get back. I want you to tell that story because it's still one of the best ones I've heard in BNI. But talk about real quick. So the people that are watching, if they're getting ready to start or grow a business or somebody they know is, talk a couple things that you would recommend they look at putting their name on to for any kind of identification.
Yeah,
Because at the end of the day, you're still a marketer. You
right.
deal with promotional products, but you're a marketer. So what would you recommend? What thoughts process do they
Yeah.
kind of need to go through to think about what they need to have available?
Well, part of my little pitch, if you will, is I tell people that I help small, medium sized business with their branding their business, marketing their business, and promoting. So if you actually think about those three things as you're starting a business, think to yourself is, what am I doing to brand myself? because you really do want a brand. I mean, people, everybody knows McDonald's because of the not because of the name. It's really the brand now. They know the golden arches. So I ask people, think about it. What are you doing to brand yourself? Next, what are you doing to market yourself? How are you marketing yourself? I mean, are you part of the BNI? Are you going to networking meetings? What is it that you're doing to market yourself? And then how do you promote yourself? What is it that you're doing to promote yourself? I mean, if you're an insurance agent, what are you doing to promote that you're an insurance agent? Because there's thousands of them out there. What makes you stand out? So that's what I tell people is I think about those three things. What's your brand? And don't just tell me, well, I work for a big name, MetLife or State Farm Insurance or somebody like that. Well, there's a bunch of those guys out there. So what are you doing to brand yourself? What makes you different? How are you marketing yourself? And how are you promoting yourself? Now I tell them, I say, you don't doesn't mean you got to spend money and get promotional products. Promotional products may not be for everybody, but you've got to find a way to go out there and brand yourself. And with my marketing background, what I tell people at no cost to you, I'll be more than glad to sit down. I'm free. I'll give advice. I'll tell you. I'll say, listen, here's some ideas. If it works out where I can help you with that, then great. But if it doesn't, that's okay too. I work with a lot of nonprofits. And I tell the nonprofits, I said, listen, let me give you a price on something. I know you're a nonprofit. Money is very important. If you're not going to spend the money with me, then at least let me give you a quote and show that quote to the vendor that you are doing business with. Maybe you're doing business with somebody for the last 10 years and you don't want to change because they've been good to you. And I appreciate that. I get it. But let them know that, hey, by the way, we met someone else that can undercut your prices by 10, 15, 20%. Make them match it. Because if I wasn't able to do it for you, maybe I can by the quote I give you. So think about it. How are you promoting yourself? How are you marketing yourself? And what kind of brand are you trying to create?
And when we go back to the brand, and it's good that you mentioned larger companies because, yeah, you could be part of Allstate, but they're buying you.
Right.
You're Tom.
Yeah.
They're not buying Allstate. They know you locally. You've been recommended. They've got your cell phone number.
Right.
And there's a guy in BNI. I don't know if he's still in there, but his tagline was, I'm the guy in the bow tie.
There you go.
So everybody knew they
Right.
knew what he did once they got to meet him, but they remembered it's the bow tie. So
Right.
if there's something that separates you in that insurance world, again, what can you give them
Right.
that's going to make you memorable? Not just because you work for Allstate, because you're Tom and I met him and I liked him.
Yeah. Well, what I tell the people is, a lot of times they get this free stuff. Maybe they're a financial advisor and they get a box full of stuff from Fidelity, or they're with State Farm and Metropolitan. They get a box full of stuff with those logos on there. So I get it. I understand that, they want to take advantage of that brand. There are corporate guidelines. I don't believe, I could be wrong. There could be exceptions, but most, even those corporate groups, even though they tell you that, you got to get stuff from us and it's got to be branded by us, chances are that if you push the issue, they will have a set of branding guidelines. And they will tell you that if you're going to go outside, they've got to follow these and maybe they even got to approve it. But that's okay. All you've got to do is bring those branding guidelines to somebody like me. I will make sure that the colors match, that the fonts match. I will make sure that the branding guidelines are adhered to. And then what we'll do is we will add your name or your tagline that makes you stand out, that makes you different. I've had many a financial advisor come to me and say, "Hey, I got these Fidelity pins. I keep getting them out. I keep getting this free stuff." And I'm like, "Yeah, but
But yeah,
somebody walks away, they have a Fidelity pin, and then they remember, oh, you know what? I think I'm gonna check in with Fidelity." And there's a gazillion Fidelity people out there. So when they look up the yellow pages, when they go onto the web and they look up Fidelity, what's the chances are they're going to find your name? So anyway, I tell people use your corporate guidelines. I will adhere to them. People that do what I do will adhere to those guidelines. It will make you stand out. And then if there's something else that you can add to it that is kind of like a supplemental, if you will, to whatever the freebies are from corporate, then look at it that way.
what's the biggest thing you put a logo on to date?
The biggest thing I've put a
Yeah.
logo on, well, most everything is a giveaway stuff, so
Mhm.
that there aren't all that big. But believe it or not, out of Chatham County, there's a 4-H organization that's a big customer of mine, and they wanted cornhole games.
Nice.
Okay, so these were, I don't know, 2.5 feet wide by maybe three and a
Four.
half, four
Yeah.
feet long. Okay, and they wanted the 4-H logo on it with the Chatham County on there,
Mhm.
and not only was it an odd giveaway, it wasn't a giveaway. In this case here, they were going to a summer camp. They're going to have these out there, and all the kids were going to be throwing the bean bags, but they wanted their logos on them. So that was one of the things
Okay.
that was good size.
But again, that shows the wide array of things that
Right.
you could put a logo on and the
Right.
different things people need to keep in mind when they're promoting their own business.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
If you want some more information on Tom's business, go to affordable-promos.com. You can give him a call as well. He can, like I said, he's free. You get a good, easy half hour with him on just talking about things, what his recommendations are. And for things like this, you need to go to an expert. Tom is one of those. Tom, we enjoyed having you on the show today. Good luck business-wise the rest of the year.
I really appreciate it. Thank you.
And look forward to seeing you next week on Triangle BNI.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. If you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it in the archives section at nissancommunications.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Sponsored by Telestream's Wirecast software, StreamingGear.com, Carolina Apparel, and DeltaForce.net.